Imagine spending your entire life caring for someone else's family while believing you may never have one of your own. Welcome to Sheroes. Tonight, take a deep breath, settle in, and let this remarkable true story transport you to Victorian England, a world where a woman's dreams were often less worth than the silver she polished. This is the true story of Hannah Cullwick, a servant whose heart refused to surrender even when society insisted it should. If stories of courage, sacrifice, and extraordinary women inspire you, you're in the right place. Now, let's begin. Long before sunrise, while the grand houses of England still slept, Hannah was already awake. Her hands scrubbed stone floors until they bled. She carried heavy buckets through freezing corridors. She polished boots she would never wear and prepared meals she would never taste. Every room sparkled because of her, yet no guest knew her name. In Victorian England, a servant's greatest success was to become invisible. She entered through back doors. She spoke only when spoken to. She lowered her eyes whenever her employers passed. And every night, after exhausting herself for families who celebrated birthdays, weddings, and Christmas together, Hannah returned to a tiny servant's room alone. The cruelest part wasn't the endless work. It was knowing that many women in service believed love simply wasn't meant for them. Marriage often meant losing the only livelihood they had. Dreaming of children could cost them their position. So countless young women buried their hopes before they ever had the chance to bloom. Hannah understood those rules. She lived them every single day. But deep inside her heart remained one dangerous thought. What if I refused to believe this was all my life could ever be? That single question would change everything. Years passed. The endless scrubbing, the aching hands, the silent meals, the lonely nights. Hannah had almost convinced herself that love belonged to other women, not to servants. Then she met Arthur Munby. Unlike most gentlemen, he didn't look through her, he looked at her. Not at the apron she wore, not at the rough skin on her hands, but at the woman beneath them. One evening, after Hannah had finished her work, the two walked quietly along a country path. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Arthur broke the silence. "Hannah, do you know what I admire most about you?" She smiled faintly. "No, sir. Don't call me sir when we're alone." She lowered her eyes. "Old habits are difficult to forget." Arthur replied gently, "Then let me give you a new one." Hannah looked at him with surprise. "You speak as though a servant can simply become someone else." Arthur shook his head. "No, I speak as though you've always been someone more." Those words stayed with her long after they parted. No one had ever spoken to her that way, not as a servant, as a person. Days later, Arthur gathered the courage to ask the question that could change both of their lives. "Hannah, will you marry me?" She stared at him in disbelief. Then she quietly laughed, not from happiness, but because the idea seemed impossible. "Marry you? Yes. People like you don't marry women like me." Arthur answered, "People don't, but I do." Hannah's smile disappeared. "You don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. If people discover this," she paused,
They'll laugh at you." Arthur stepped closer. "Let them," she whispered. "They'll say you married a servant." "No," he replied softly. "I'll say I married Hannah." For a moment, the world seemed completely still, yet Hannah's greatest fear remained. And what happens after the wedding? Will I suddenly become a lady? Arthur didn't lie. He didn't promise castles. He didn't promise an easy future.
Instead, he answered with honesty, "I can't promise the world will change, but I promise I will never be ashamed of loving you." Tears gathered in Hannah's eyes. No expensive gift could have meant more than those words. In 1873, they were married in secret. No grand ballroom, no orchestra, no cheering guests, just two people making a promise that Victorian society believed should never exist. Yet the wedding did not magically erase the barriers between them.
A note history insists on: their real relationship was more complicated than romance alone. Munby was drawn to Hannah's roughened hands and manual labor almost as much as to her. Their diaries describe a master-servant role she performed even in private. Historians still debate whether this was a genuine partnership ahead of its time or something more unsettling dressed as love. Both readings are part of the true record. Yet even after becoming husband and wife, Hannah continued working as a servant for much of her life. Their marriage remained hidden from many people. The world still saw only her apron. But beneath that simple apron rested a wedding ring and a heart that had dared to believe it deserved love. Sometimes history remembers kings, sometimes generals, but every once in a while, history remembers a servant who quietly proved that dignity cannot be measured by social class. And that is exactly why Hannah Cullwick's story still deserves to be told.
You might expect this story to end with Hannah walking away from service forever. History tells a more complicated truth. She did not become a celebrated lady. She did not suddenly live an easy life. She continued to struggle against the expectations of her time. But perhaps that is exactly why her story still matters. Because courage is not measured only by perfect endings. Sometimes courage is choosing love when the world says you are unworthy of it. Sometimes courage is protecting a promise that no one else understands. And sometimes courage is refusing to let society decide the value of your heart. Hannah left behind something more powerful than riches. She left her diaries. Page after page, she recorded the hidden reality of domestic servants, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the dignity they fought to preserve, and the humanity the world so often ignored.
Without her words, millions of women like her might have disappeared from history without a voice. Today, we remember Hannah not because she lived a fairy tale, but because she reminded us that even the quietest lives can carry extraordinary strength. Her greatest victory wasn't becoming wealthy. It wasn't changing Victorian society overnight. It was refusing to believe she was too small to deserve love. And perhaps that's a lesson every generation still needs. If Hannah's story touched your heart, let it remind you that behind every forgotten woman in history was a human being with dreams as real as our own. If you believe stories like these deserve to be remembered, please like this video, subscribe to She Rose, and join us for more true stories of remarkable women whose courage changed history, one quiet step at a time. Because somewhere in the past, another forgotten woman is still waiting for her story to be told.